Okay. So morning, everyone. We'll just give it a little minute for attendees to start dropping into the conversation, and then we'll begin the discussion this morning. Okay. All right, so welcome everyone. Welcome to the 2025 edition of Pitch on Demand. Very excited to see that we have Howard joining us. So I'd just like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of all the lands on which we live and work. For me, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past and present. So Pitch on Demand was created to give commissioners and streamers the opportunity to consider the gaps in their slate and to provide a specific brief to Australian producers. So yes, as I said, very excited to have our first dedicated unscripted commissioner join us today, Howard Myers-Riffai, Head of Unscripted Originals at the Foxtel Group. Welcome.
Very, very happy to be here.
So Howard, can we just start with you telling us a little bit about your role at Foxtel and about the unscripted team and what you cover there?
Sure. So I am head of unscripted, which basically means I look after every unscripted original across the board in all our genres, from factual and documentary through our many lifestyle shows and all the way to reality. So it's a very broad church of all those different genres. And I'm involved with a very small team. So I'm very involved, quite hands-on with our productions, right through from those initial pitches to the development process, and obviously once we're in production, either executive producing or with one of my team executive producing. As I said, we're a very small team. I have one senior executive producer, Jackie Saddington, who has been with us almost 2 years now. And we have a production management team, so a head of production who looks after the nuts and bolts with you, and obviously production support for him. And then we have our legal team as well. But as I say, it's a very tight, small group, which has its benefits and disadvantages. It means you're not lost amongst a group of 20 people all looking after different parts of the work that we're doing, but at the same time we're very stretched.
Thanks for that. So can you tell us a little bit about how commissioning works at Foxtel? So what's the process you go through internally once you've heard a pitch you really like and you'd like to take it further?
Yeah, so we've been sort of adapting and progressing our internal processes to make it a little bit more formal. I think in years gone past, it's been very ad hoc, and especially because we have had lots of great returning series, so there's been less opportunity for brand new pitches to come in. We're much more open now. I'm certainly looking for more shows. So to help that along, we put more formal processes in, but we're very flat structure. Basically, I will talk to my leader, currently Wendy Moore, although she's about to leave us. So basically, the head of content. I also take any of those pitches around to my programming colleagues, whether that's Binge and Foxtel. I'm happy to talk a little bit about the differences between those two platforms. And then basically that then goes up to Hilary Perchard, who's our kind of senior CEO, and then at the same time, normally in front of Patrick Delaney, and that's it. And our CFO is involved in that. So we have basically a commissioning memo that needs 5 signatures on to get something greenlit. So as I say, it's very flat. It can take a long time, even though there's a small number of people, but that is the nature of corporation like this. And we have new owners as well, who also will now be taking a look at anything of significant spend.
That's true. And so that's DAZN, isn't it?
Yeah. DAZN, yeah, and we all struggled with how to say that when the merger went through, but it's DAZN because they're a sports-led company. You're in DAZN. But they're very hands-off so far. Really, it is only kind of if we're getting to significant spends or significant commitment over a number of years with a certain production or partnership, then that's where they're currently getting involved. They're obviously very strong on the sports side, but in terms of, kind of entertainment, that's scripted and unscripted, we're pretty much still being left to our own devices, which is great.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So, and also just a reminder for the audience, you can please pop any questions into the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of the screen there, and I'll start directing those to Howard a little later on. So can you tell us how many original unscripted shows you would commission, say, in a year?
So it depends because we're kind of looking at where we take that year, but I can give you last year's example because I'm very proud that we delivered within that 12-month period, that 12-month financial year, July to the end of June, 12 different original unscripted productions, which I think is probably, since I've been here 9 years, I think that's probably the most we've ever done in a year, and it at a time when we have, you know, significant budget restrictions. I think that's been a really testament to what we're trying to do in terms of the broad range of those shows, and also really trying to use unscripted as a differentiator. I think amongst a lot of certainly the locals and international streamers. It really sets us apart. I think we're absolutely the best in lifestyle, and certainly some of the other genres that should be brand defining for us as well.
Great, thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about what's on your current slate?
Yep. So right now we're currently in production with the Great Australian Bake Off. That's in season 9. Shooting in a very muddy field at the moment, but hopefully the rain in Sydney will go away and that will dry out. We have Love It Listed Australia. That's in season 6. You'll see quite a few of these are, very much returning series.
Oh, yeah.
We have Selling Houses Australia. That's in season 18. That's currently in production. And we also have a kind of another one-off documentary, and something which will be announced at our upfronts, which I'm really excited about, which is probably the biggest thing. Well, I think it is the biggest thing we've ever commissioned. It is a co-commission with another network, but I'm very, very excited about that, and that's in the kind of reality factual entertainment space.
Oh, that's great, because I was actually going to ask you whether you are co-commissioning as a way to help finance those bigger budget projects.
Yeah, and it's something more and more we're really one of the probably the biggest thing I'm involved at the moment is looking at different ways of financing. We've co-commissioned in the past, whether that was Gogglebox with Channel 10. This is, as I say, another co-commission. It's with an international network. We're obviously the Australian network for that particular production. So we're looking at a number of different ways of really, yeah, stretching those budgets, but also probably getting more bang for our buck. And if we can do that, whether it's with an international partner, with a local partner, whether there's some brand funding involved, any kind of way that we can use soft money to help, or money from elsewhere. We're looking at all of those things, and just on brand funded, it's something we are quite involved with. We have 3 productions currently that have fallen under the brand funded model, but we don't do them in way maybe that the free to airs do them. We really use them as primetime programming, and because there's a brand behind it doesn't necessarily mean it's brand first. It's really, we absolutely still look for premium content that is all editorially justified. So that's one branch. We obviously have the kind of full freight commissioning that we commission, and then there's kind of hybrid models or co-commissions or co-productions.
Could you give us an example of brand funding currently, like a show that?
Yeah, so we're currently in production. That's another one which I forgot, which is Luxury Escapes. We're in season 3 of Luxury Escapes, and it's a beautiful show. It's made by a small local company here called I8, and they do a fantastic job. It is a tight budget, but the show looks amazing. It does incredibly well for us. The brand is very happy with it, and that works really well for us. We just made a show with the pharmacy group Amcal, now part of Chemist Warehouse, called Gen Well, and that was all about. There was 10 episodes, all about different aspects of health and well-being. So yeah, but as I say, we treat them very much as premium, and need to work as well as any of our shows that we put in any prime time slot.
Thank you. So I've got a lot of questions coming in now, which I'll start to get to, but I'll just reference one which asks what genres you look for in your scripted slate. I'll just answer that this is an unscripted commissioner we're talking to, an unscripted pitch that we're looking at today. Can I just ask quickly, when someone comes to you with a pitch, do you want are you happy to talk to less experienced teams, or do you like that more experienced production company on board?
So I'm an ex-producer myself.
Yeah.
I've been I've worked in big companies. I've worked in, had my own company for a long time in the UK. We were very small, grew, contracted, grew, as you do. So I understand that, great ideas can come from anywhere. Really, there's great idea and then there's great execution. And I think the execution is sometimes where we'd prefer to pair a less experienced producer with a bigger company so that, we have, I still have to answer to my CFO and make sure we're spending millions of dollars on something that it's going to be well looked after. So it's pairing with a more experienced production company can work. For a less experienced producer, but it's really going to depend on the idea. And of course, the way those ideas come in is also really important, and happy to talk about that if you want, what I prefer to see in terms of, one pages or fully developed ideas, whatever.
That was literally my next question, Howard.
Yeah, well,
Do you
it
like
flows on very
to-
well. And it's, again, I've sat on that side of the table and I've made terrible pitches myself and I've made great ones. Hopefully that have worked. I would say for me, I do get a lot of pitches. It really helps that they're not 40 pages of text. Often, just a half page or a one pager or even a two pager, just to kind of explain the basic idea, because I prefer to say, hey, this is right. But let's develop it this way, or go away and come back with more information, or what great access do you have if it's kind of an observational documentary, or how is that going to work, or just give me some budget numbers that you think could work on a finance plan. Better to have that than you develop something that's so overdeveloped that also we can't have a hand in it, because we know our audiences really well. We know our platforms, Foxtel and Binge, different who have slightly different audiences. So to help me, a couple of pages, even just a half a paragraph, sometimes can start the dialogue, and that's probably the best way to approach those things. If it's overdeveloped, as I said, sometimes it might be just too much. And we can't really do anything with it because we feel it's too set in stone.
So thank you. So for the purposes of pitch on demand, we do ask for a one-page pitch. And there is like a structured brief and a structured way to set up your one-page pitch. And you can find all of that information on our website, screenproducers.org.au. Please go to calendar and then pitch on demand. So why don't we move on to the specific brief for today, and what you're looking for pitch on demand. Can you tell us a little bit of what you're looking for?
Yeah, so as I said, we are, we have a very broad range of shows, and I would say, we're very well served in the lifestyle space. We're very well served in big reality type shows, which often could be prohibitively expensive as well. There's two areas which really I'd like to focus on for the purposes of this, which is the access observational documentary in some kind of precinct. And that would be um, similar to um, inside the hospital type, inside King's Cross, that type of thing, or behind the scenes at an airport, or behind the scenes at a big hotel, or something like that. That basically can work as uh, that has quite a broad audience, something we're all fascinated in. I think that's certainly one area. And then the other area is similarly something just is very character based, has some really interesting characters. Could be a one-off documentary or a strand in the vein of a Louis Theroux. Would be really interesting as well, but that really has to be very much talent based into who is going to be fronting that. We've been looking for something like that for a long time, but have never found the right lead, the right journalist or personality who's going to front that and be authentic and believable. There's certainly two areas which would be of massive interest to me at the moment. And I know, Jess, you want this to be specific, but it's something else, something else that has a burning passion for an idea that they just really, really want to pitch. I'm still open to that, and that could be in any of those unscripted areas. The only thing that we won't look at, it's just not us, are kind of big shiny floor entertainment, singing competitions, those kinds of things. It's not us. We'll leave those to the free to air. I would say though, look at our platforms. That's Foxtel and Binge, especially Binge, and look at. We don't have specific slots, but we do have needs in terms of kind of filling out what we can already acquire. And the other thing I would say as well, and this applies especially to those two areas that I've just talked about, is if you feel this could be on one of our competitors or on the ABC specifically, it's probably not for us. And I say that because we need to have a point of difference. So we just did a one-off documentary called Sold, which was about the housing crisis in Australia. Quite unusual for us. It was a bit of a trial. It actually did really well for us because obviously we have a lot of people who come to us for our property shows. So this was kind of the antithesis of that. But people are really interested in that subject matter. It did really well for us, but it had a very binge kind of style to it. It was Mark Humphreys, it was comedic, it didn't take itself too seriously, even though it had a serious underlying message. So I would always look at kind of the style and that execution and what would make it fit for us rather than one of our competitors or say the ABC.
Okay, thank you. So there's a lot of questions coming in. Um, so what about finished docos?
They would go to our acquisitions
Acquisition.
team
Yeah.
rather than me commissioning them. So yeah,
Okay.
that's
Thank
where
you.
you would approach that.
Can you give us an example of a show that nearly made it but just fell short? And what happened?
Um, that's an interesting question. Yeah, we did a number of years ago in the kind of lifestyle genre. We made a show called Selling in the City. It was sort of based on, it was when first started, and we were trying to make a Selling Houses Australia so for that slightly younger, probably urban-based binge audience. And really, what we got wrong about it is that we couldn't really decide whether it was for a binge audience or a Foxtel audience. We wanted it to work for both, and so it fell between those two stools in terms of kind of style and information and takeaway and subject matter. And so it never really worked. Now, interestingly, where we are is even if we make a show more specifically for that slightly younger binge audience, we do still need it to work on the Foxtel platform as well.
Mhm.
So it's a really tricky balance to make it work for two reasonably diverse audiences and demographics, and that's always going to be an issue. But I'll take it if it goes gangbusters for binge. I'll take it.
Great. So there's a couple of questions about co-commissioning, and what the process there is. Do we pitch to Foxtel first, or rather have a co-commissioner on board, or a broadcaster or a brand, and come into you last? Is there a preference?
Um, Look, I think come to us first because then we can tell you whether it is even right for us in terms of subject matter. The co-commission we're about to announce at our upfronts was already we already had an international network on board, and then it came to us as the kind of the minor partner, if you like, or somewhat minor partner. It's still a big commission for us, but so it can work anyway. But I would say initially come to us. In terms of brands, we have a very strong brand team here who can really help put a brand attach a brand to a project as well. So unless the project is absolutely brand focused on that one particular brand, if it is just, hey, here's a great idea about building, there's no point kind of saying, hey, we think we can get Bunnings on board or whatever. We can handle that. And so we know all of those brands. We also know what are, in case there is any restrictions on who we're already working with. So I'd say, come to us with the idea first if we think it's something for a brand, if it's something that we feel might have a co-commission opportunity. If it is a true crime series, that has a Canadian aspect to it, then that's something we're interested in. For instance, because we know Canada are really interested in co-commissioning with us as well. Lots of soft money there. So we might be able to help that, or you might be able to come and say, hey, we've already got a Canadian. I'm using Canada as an example.
Yeah. Yeah.
A Canadian network interested. So we already know, okay, we're not having to spend as much, and it gives a better chance across the line. But just happy to see, the idea in the first place.
Thank you. Um, so question here from Carmel Travers, do your standalone docos need to sit within a particular strand, sport, music, etc., or are you open to more cinematic, high-end doco films in the likes of Errol Morris or Joshua Oppenheimer?
Love Errol Morris. We have traditionally not done a lot of the single documentaries, and especially the kind of the high-end cinematic style that you're referencing there. I particularly love them. I think we'd be interested in looking at them if the finance model is right. We don't have a documentary strand at the moment, but it's something I'm certainly interested in for Binge and for Foxtel. We know those things can do very well. I would say stay away from sport and music. I know that certainly music is not something that we can find an audience for at the moment. And sport sounds, well, hang on, we have KO, we have Fox Sports, we're part of the
Sure.
Zone. It sounds like we should be doing more of those. We're still kind of doing that dance as to working out how we can do sports aligned programming.
Mhm.
So I would say pure sports documentaries, probably not right now. Maybe something in the future. Talk to me in a year's time. Maybe something sports aligned, if that makes sense. But right now, we're not looking at sport focused work at the moment.
That's great. That answers a couple of other questions further down about whether you're looking for sports-related docos. So we'll tick those ones off as well. Can you talk a little bit more about your audience demographics,
Yep.
difference between
Yep.
Hinge and Foxtel?
Absolutely. So the Foxtel audience is an older audience. They're very sticky. We're currently at our lowest churn rate. People are not leaving the Foxtel platform in great numbers anymore. So the people who are left, which is numbers, a couple of million, are diehard Foxtel fans. They're probably slightly older, like the linear experience, love the kind of the range, love lifestyle shows, and as I say, it's equal kind of men and women, but they're probably 50 and above. as a core audience. Obviously, it's broader than that, but in terms of a core audience. For the binge audience, it's a little lower than that, and we're also aiming for a little lower as well. I mean, we have made shows in the past like F-Boy Island, which have spoken to, kind of teens and 20-year-olds. Probably not going quite for that very young part of the market, but certainly, 25 to 45 is binge, and then obviously there's a big crossover between the two. So I would say those are the core differences. You also have to think about when we're looking at binge, and increasingly in Foxtel as well, video on demand, is the environment in which we place our shows is very different from a free-to-air linear environment. Shows have to self-market themselves. We only have limited marketing funds. So we don't have a linear play where somebody will watch something, they'll see a promo, and then they'll watch the next thing, or they'll tune in for that because they've
Mm,
seen it promoed. So, shows really have to be really quite different and special
mhm,
to really stand out. And that's the other thing I should say in terms of budgets as well. I know we're running out of time, but it isn't just the production budget that I have to think about, to really make a show work. I also have to spend a lot of money on marketing to get it to people. So the more that show can self-market itself, either because of the idea, the people involved, the host, any of those things
mhm.
that can helps me market that show without spending millions and millions and millions.
That's great. We have so many questions coming in. We might have to go a few minutes over if
Let's
that's
stand by me.
okay. So that probably brings me to one question, which is about, would you look at shows that come in with like YouTube channels or successful TikTok accounts? That's something that you would take into account.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're all aware that that's, the future of TV is beyond the borders of traditional producers and traditional platforms. And so absolutely everybody's doing that. And we'd be very interested in talking to productions that are involved with creators, YouTube channels, anything that or already has that built-in
Right.
audience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're ruling out kids shows animation for the purposes of this particular brief. I know you mentioned the Access Observational documentary. Would you, for example, inside the Sydney fish market? One delegate is asking.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Absolutely. I mean, I think we might be a little late to the party because, I think the build would have been interesting for that as well. I know it's still under construction, but yeah, that could be something interesting. Who doesn't love fish?
And when it comes to precinct based, are you open to any police blue light series?
Absolutely. They can be tricky, but we've done that before, and I'd certainly be happy to look at it again. But the access absolutely has to be locked down because
Access.
the idea itself isn't good enough.
Lots of people asking about true crime and just wanting to bring that to this brief in particular. So that's something you would consider for this brief.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a few true crime ideas right now.
Mhm.
And so again, I think of for me for true crime that's really going to work for our broadest audience and also give us a chance to get some revenue from selling it internationally as well. I would say universality of theme
Mhm.
rather than another Outback murder. So I always quote Tinder Swindler as something that travels all around the world, but had the Australian version of that, something which is still uniquely Australian, but
Mm.
it has a universal theme. I think would be really interesting.
Um, Question here. I know you mentioned the Louis Theroux style character based. I think this is what this question is in reference to. How long do you want that to be, feature length or shorter?
So Foxtel is a little bit more strict in terms of our slots, but for binge, we don't have particular slots. We're a streamer, and so we can go from 30 minutes to an hour to 90 minutes. I think More traditionally, we'd probably stick within those hour-long programming slots. But say within that, that can be 10 minutes either side. But also, is that a one-off? Is it a three-parter? Is it a two-parter? Happy to kind of look at whatever is the right way to tell the story, I would say. It's all I would say is it's very hard for us to promote one-off documentaries. So, if we're spending a lot of money on a feature doc, it has to be something super special that is really going to speak to our audience and also has a chance to have some international money involved as well, because it's very hard for us just to promote this one thing.
Would
Um,
you stand behind a limited theatrical release on a feature doc?
Um, we haven't traditionally done that, but again, we'll look at anything. We have done one in the far past, which did have a theatrical release. As I say, I think it's harder for us, and it's harder for me to make a business case on those very high-end one-off documentaries as much as I love them myself.
Mhm. Um, let's see, are there any off-limit themes? And that might also tie in with another question, which is about the Access docos being about closed door industry or taboo subculture, especially if the industry is quite controversial and polarizing. So are you interested in that? And I think the other part of that question is there anything you just would not be interested in?
Um, when you're looking at those areas, look, I don't think anything's off limits. I mean, we did F Boy Island for goodness sake, so we kind of. I think those areas. All I would say is just think about the audience. I think it's always a good starting point. Don't think of me as a commissioner. Think of the broadest audience we think we can reach. So if it becomes too niche, and this is less about taboo, but it's if it's too niche, we're not going to bring in the biggest audience, and so I think it's going to again very hard to make a business case for something like that.
Mhm.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the subject matter. If the subject matter is taboo, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, thanks. So I've got a few more coming in. Coming back to co-commissioning, would you co-commission with a local FTA broadcaster like SBS?
Um, I'd certainly consider it. Again, it's tricky for us because that exclusivity locally obviously helps drive our subscribers. We want people to sign up and watch the service. So if we are co-commissioning with a local, I think we'd have to be talking about potential second windows for that local partner, rather than co-commissioning we're both on at the same time. Doesn't really make a huge amount of sense for us.
Okay, so I'm going to do three more questions. Um, Question from Yana. You mentioned referencing budget, and we do ask for that in the one-page pitch for Pitch on Demand. To what level of detail would you be expecting to see a per episode estimate?
Absolutely top line to start with, because budgets, real numbers that rather than we think it's going to cost this, and any indication of finance plan. So if you have, oh, I don't know if I'm breaking
Oh,
up.
we've
So
got
it
you.
says
I think you
okay.
dropped off.
Yeah, if you have any indication of kind of soft money, screen agency money, tourism money, any of those kinds of things within that finance plan, again, just top line would really help rather than, hey, it's going to cost this one big number.
Sure. Following up on your answer about high-end cinematic docos, what would the right funding model look like for you? More of a bigger
I
question.
don't know until I see it, to be honest. One where we're not putting in millions and millions of dollars, I guess, but it's
Fair
really
answer.
it's
Yeah.
really tough. I think it's courses for courses.
Okay. And last question we had, when it comes to character-led series, you mentioned like Louis Theroux. Is there a preference for male or female host, given Binge's more female skewed audience?
No, I think, and this is a good thing to end on. I think what we think are our preconceptions of what the audience want to see and not necessarily really what the audience want to see. So, you know, you could spin that either way. You could say, hey, you know, a sexy male host will appeal to a female audience, or you could say, no, a female protagonist will be much better because they can speak from their own experience, and that's the same experience that the audience have. You could spin that either way, in the same way that something which on the face of it is for a younger audience or an older audience, either of those audiences watch those things that aren't supposed to be for them. So I think I don't, while I'm saying think of the audience first, don't necessarily come with preconceptions about that what that audience actually love to watch.
Okay, and I do think
True
that's
crime, for instance, is over 70% viewed by female viewers.
yeah,
You
it's
know, and you
interesting,
would have
isn't it?
thought, you know, and it's so
Yeah.
interesting. You would have thought it's kind of it's male, but actually, when you think about it, it's the psychology of the victims, of the perpetrators. That's actually what really hooks people in.
Mm. I think that is a great way to end it. So, just for the purposes of Pitch on Demand, to sum up, we're looking for access observational documentaries, for example, behind the scenes in an airport, hotel, hospital, as long as that access is legitimate and there is that 100% authorized access there. Also, looking for perhaps a documentary in the style of Louis Theroux. You know, that would be considered as well. Also considering true crime for the purposes of this pitch on demand. And yeah, I think, would you say that we've got the brief there, Howard?
Absolutely, but you know, and as I say, I'm sure you don't want to hear this, but I'd still be open to if somebody has a burning passion of an idea
Yeah,
that you know is in a different genre, then I'm happy to see it. You know, I love seeing great ideas, so I'm really happy, and we don't get enough of them. So I'm really happy to look at most things.
fantastic. And you are going to get inundated now, Howard.
That's fine. It's that's the best bit of the job.
Yeah, it's
The
true.
worst bit is having to say no, but at least I always try and kind of give a good reason why if I can.
Fantastic. So, thank you so much, Howard, for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Very excited to have a dedicated unscripted commissioner and really excited to see the pictures that come in.
Me
Um,
too.
So just for everyone else, I've dropped the link in the chat there, which goes to the screenproducers.org.au, and you can access the Pitch on Demand portal through there. This webinar will be posted up later today, so you can rewatch it and really hone in on the brief. The submission portal will open this Wednesday at midday after the final webinar. Just a couple of other quick announcements today. One's to watch closes this Wednesday, 11:59 p.m. And we also have Generate coming up Wednesday, September 24th at Afters in Sydney. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you, Howard.
My pleasure. Cheers. Bye.